Welcome to Copilot Podcasts. Picture this, a father and son cruising through a military-based neighborhood after dark on a stolen power wheelchair, no words exchanged, just two people finding connection in the simplest possible way. Today, we're diving into the untold stories of military childhood, specifically what it's really like growing up on Fort Benning when your dad deploys 7 out of 12 years. You'll understand how military kids create stability in chaos, and why the smallest moments become the most meaningful. Let me bring in someone who spent years studying these family dynamics to help us unpack what these stories really reveal about resilience and adaptation.
That wheelchair story you opened with? It perfectly captures something most people don't understand about military families. When a parent is constantly deployed, the most ordinary moments become extraordinary.
Right, and this isn't just any military base. Fort Benning is known as the home of the infantry. What does that mean for families living there?
Fort Benning families live with a specific rhythm, constant deployment cycles. In Brad's case, his father was deployed to Korea and multiple Iraq tours. We're talking about a childhood where dad was gone roughly 7 out of 12 years.
7 out of 12 years? That's more than half his childhood. How does a kid even process that level of absence?
They create these intense pockets of connection. That wheelchair joyride at McGraw Manor wasn't planned or profound, just Brad and his dad taking turns riding his Grandpa Woody's power wheelchair up and down the street in the dark.
No deep conversation, no big bonding speech, just two people being together.
Exactly. And this happened during a period of constant deployment, so these simple moments carried enormous weight. Military kids learn to find meaning in the mundane because that's often all they have.
But it's not just about the moments with dad. These kids also create their own worlds, right? Tell me about the dollar store.
Brad's Aunt Angie ran a dollar store in Cassetta with Uncle Carl. Angie had lost an arm in a car accident when she was 4, but she created this space that became Brad's second home.
And the back room was like his personal playground?
It was this old, precarious, 2-story structure with hiding spots everywhere. Brad and his dad would have full-on rubber band wars back there, shooting each other, running between floors, using the space like a battlefield.
Wait, rubber band wars? That sounds amazing!
Right? But here's what's interesting. While they're having these epic battles, Brad's also stealing bear claws off the shelf when no one's looking, just grabbing them and eating them while he played.
So he's creating his own rules in this space. What else was he doing there?
Upstairs in the stockroom, he'd build elaborate marble tracks using whatever boxes and supplies were lying around. But the real attraction was the computer.
Let me guess, video games?
Brad would get on and lose himself in Growser games, Adventure Quest, Dragon Fable, and eventually RuneScape. Hours and hours grinding in those early MMO-style games while his family dealt with whatever adult chaos was happening.
There's something about those early MMO games that just consumed kids. You could disappear into these virtual worlds for hours.
And that's exactly what Brad needed. Because while the dollar store backroom was his escape, the home situation was complicated. Aunt Angie and Uncle Carl's trailer was filthy, cockroaches everywhere, piss-soaked mattresses, mountains of dirty clothes and trash.
So the dollar store became this weird sanctuary, chaos at home, but the backroom was pure escape.
Exactly. Military kids become experts at finding stability in unstable situations. But sometimes the adult chaos becomes impossible to ignore.
What do you mean?
When Brad was around 11, his dad made a surprise return from the Middle East. He was deployed at the time, but came back early because he found out Brad's mum was having an affair with Brad's Uncle Carl.
Oh, wow. So Brad witnessed this confrontation?
Brad remembers looking out his second-floor bedroom window and seeing his mum, dad, and uncle fighting below. His dad was beating the hell out of his uncle when Brad's mum hit his dad in the head with a Maglite flashlight.
A Maglite? Those things are heavy.
After that, Brad's dad climbed up the building and took off across the rooftops, running through the night to avoid the police. Just picture that, a grown man fleeing across military housing rooftops.
That's like something out of a movie. But this is an 11-year-old watching his family explode.
And here's the thing about military life. Life just kept going after that. Dad had to move into the barracks. Mum and Uncle Carl somehow stayed living in McGraw Village. Eventually, Dad went through the process and got the house back.
So Brad moved back in with his dad?
When Brad was around 12, he moved back in with his dad at the same house. By then, Dad was dating Brad's mum's cousin. She was awful, power tripping because of her new position and access to money.
The family dynamics just keep getting more complicated.
And Brad's trying to navigate all this while also being a normal kid. He had friends like Aldrich, this metalhead kid with long hair who listened to Megadeth and Metallica. Unusual for that time and place.
A metalhead on a military base? That must have stood out.
Aldrich was one of those rap is crap kids, got that attitude from his dad. But Brad and Aldrich got along fine, despite completely different music tastes. Brad wasn't pushy, he just wanted friends.
That's actually really mature for a kid that age. Just accepting differences to maintain friendship.
Military kids develop that adaptability early. But the family situation kept escalating. When Brad was around 14, his dad caught him smoking again. Brad couldn't deal with it.
What happened?
It was around 7 p.m. After being sent to his room, Brad waited a few minutes, then ran. He knew if his dad wanted to catch him, he could. Dad ran every day for PT and was in shape. But teenage adrenaline kicked in.
So he just bolted?
Brad bolted down the hill and hid behind the closed Starbucks in the village. A few minutes later, he saw his dad's car drive past. Brad dropped flat on the ground like he was on a spy mission.
That image of a 14-year-old playing spy to avoid his dad is both funny and heartbreaking.
He called his mum, who picked him up. From that point on, Brad lived with her and Uncle Carl in Columbus, the same Uncle Carl his dad had beaten up during the rooftop incident.
So he ended up living with the uncle who caused the original family explosion?
Military families create these complex webs of relationships and loyalties. What's fascinating is how Brad spent countless hours on the front porch at McGraw Manor, stealing Wi-Fi from whatever network he could connect to.
Just jumping between signals?
Exactly. And remember, this whole childhood operated on a specific rhythm. His dad's deployment pattern included Korea when Brad was 4, 5, then Iraq OIF 1 when he was 6, 7, Iraq OIF 3 when he was 8, 10, and so on.
That's an incredible amount of separation during crucial developmental years.
Life at McGraw Manor operated on this rhythm. Dad gone, dad home, dad gone again. The house stayed the same, but the family situation constantly shifted.
So there's this weird mix of stability and instability.
Same neighborhood, same base, but nothing really solid underneath it all. Military kids develop this strange relationship with stability. The physical environment stays constant while everything else shifts.
That's such an important insight. The base provides structure, but family life is constantly in flux.
And these kids become incredibly resourceful. They find connection in wheelchair rides, escape in dollar store backrooms, and friendship wherever they can get it.
So when you step back from all these stories, what do they really tell us about military childhood?
They reveal that military kids develop this unique form of resilience. They learn to create meaning and stability in situations that would overwhelm most adults. But they also carry the weight of adult chaos in ways that shape them permanently.
The most mundane moments become precious when a parent is constantly deployed. That wheelchair ride wasn't just fun, it was connection in its purest form.
Exactly. And understanding these dynamics helps us appreciate what military families sacrifice, not just the service member, but the children who grow up navigating this complex world of duty, deployment, and family chaos.
These stories remind us that behind every military family are kids creating their own versions of normal, finding joy in rubber band wars and meaning in stolen moments. Thanks for joining us on Copilot Podcasts.